and so much more concerning the Jubilee Party. Okay. Let's move on. Attorney General Paul Kihara accused Chief Justice David Maraga of disregarding critical public interest, adding there is no legal framework for the dissolution of Parliament. Now, the AG's affidavit came a week after the High Court suspended Maraga's adversary pending interrogation of the legality of the recommendation. I'm now joined live by NAK Kenya Party leader Martha Karua. Good afternoon. Madam Martha, thank you so much for joining us on News Desk. Now, straight to the pertinent question. Is it true that this dissolution will hand President Uhuru Kenyatta a longer term as per the assertions made by AG Kihara? And what do you think about this?
It is not true, and I would term it as wishful thinking on the part of AG Kihara. The Constitution is very clear. Only one institution is affected by Article 261, and that is Parliament in its entirety, both houses. The Senate, the National Assembly. That is the House being dissolved, and it doesn't affect the presidential term. It doesn't affect the governors and the county assemblies. But should the president wish to resign with his entire government, to quit, then there would be a presidential election in which he would not be eligible, because once you have a term, it is deemed as a full term by the Constitution. So if for any reason there was to be a presidential election, the president would not be eligible because we are way past middle of the second term. So the correct position is the term of the president remains, the term of the counties, the governors and the assemblies remain. Only Parliament is affected.
Now, as both a legal and a political mind, do you think the CJ erred in writing to advise the president to dissolve Parliament?
Absolutely not. The Chief Justice was simply following the dictates of the Constitution. He discharged his duty, which a lot of Kenyans were getting impatient that he was yet to discharge, because he could have done this last year, he could have done it 2017, he has done it in 2020, and he has followed the law.
Now, a lot of people have argued that this could create a constitutional crisis. Do you agree? And in your own view, again, should Parliament be dissolved?
Yes, absolutely. If we are to follow the rule of law, to uphold and defend the Constitution, Parliament must go home as advised, and the President must dissolve. It is true that the dissolution will cause a crisis, but it is a crisis precipitated by Parliament. They had all the time. They had warnings by the court. They had orders telling them, do your duty. They failed to discharge their duty. They demonstrated impunity and arrogance. And I believe that the dissolution or sending home of an entire institution is going to help this country not only respect the rule of law, but respect our supreme law, and that is the Constitution. It's also emphasizing that unlike before, Parliament is no longer supreme. The Constitution is supreme, and the people have the power via the Constitution to send those who do not follow the Constitution and the rule of law home. And this is the first and most emphatic example. And really, as Kenyans who want to see this country progress, we must all lend our voices to send Parliament home as dictated by the Constitution. We shall handle whatever other crisis, and I don't see any. This will be a special election of an institution called Parliament, courtesy of Article 261, and it will not affect those other elections. And it may give us an opportunity to separate the parliamentary elections with the presidential and county elections.
Now, I'm alive to the fact that all this is in court. I mean, the whole matter has since been suspended by the courts, but there are those who say that there is no explicit timeline as to when the advisory should be adhered to. But the Law Society of Kenya does say that there is a timeline. Let me get your thoughts regarding that.
The Law Society is correct because the courts have interpreted where the Constitution or the law does not give a timeline. A reasonable time is 14 days. So the president ought to have acted within 14 days. So when the Law Society gives 21 days, it is giving enough time, enough room for the president to have acted. And I'm saying that should the president choose not to act, there is the political angle to this question. Shall we as Kenyans tolerate failure to adhere to constitutionalism and the rule of law? What does that mean to our nation as we move forward? That is the political question we will have to answer.
Indeed, lastly, because we are completely out of time, but I need to ask something about the genesis of all this, which is the two-thirds gender rule. What has been the challenge in implementing this gender rule? I mean, since the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, it's 10 years down the line. What has been the challenge?
None at all. If you remember, in 2012, the state, courtesy of the Attorney General, slyly went to court. I say slyly because they just wanted the court to allow them not to implement. I was in Parliament that time, and Parliament ought to have been left to implement. But the Attorney General went to court to seek an interpretation, and the Supreme Court gave an interpretation which I believe was wrong. And I believe the correct position was the dissent by the then Chief Justice Willie Mutunga. And the court sort of the majority extended the time within which to implement the two-thirds, not more than two-thirds gender rule. And that extension took Parliament to 2015, August. Courtesy of the Constitution, they were able to extend time to August 2016 because the Constitution allowed a one-year extension by resolution of Parliament. They had all the time from when they came in 2013 to when they extended 2016 to implement the gender rule. They had sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution in order to assume their seats as members of Parliament. But once they got in, they started arguing with the Constitution. Oh, this is not easy to implement. This is difficult. Surely when you swore to uphold and defend, is it that you did not understand? What is difficult? It is just patriarchy at play. People not wanting to obey the Constitution, and especially the male members, who have been the beneficiaries of male privilege, which gives preference to men in vying for seats. Women, if given equality of opportunity, can be elected just as the men.
Indeed.
And what do I mean
Thank you
by
so
this?
much. And apologies, I have to cut you short. We are completely out of time. But thank you so much for joining us. NARC Kenya Party Leader there, Martha Karua. Once again, thank you for making the time for us here on News Desk. Now, let's cross borders.